Hello, my name is Larry Phelan. I just wanted to create a quick video to describe our signal monitoring dashboard. I had a few customers ask me recently how these threshold values are being used in the dashboard. So here I'm looking at a parameter signal rollup, particularly this one called CPP for process A at site A. And I have two threshold values, 1.2 for the yellow light threshold and 1.8 for the red light threshold. This rollup, CPP process A, site A, has four parameter signals: glucose concentration, lactose concentration, dissolved oxygen, and the glucose concentration that are being used in the calculation. Each one of those has a weight of 1. So let me show you how these threshold values are being used with a weight of 1. You could have different weights here, and I'll show you how that calculation works in both cases. So let's go to a dashboard that uses this. So I have this executive dashboard, and I'm going to drill into that. And let's look at that site A area. So if we look at that CPP process A site A calculation, we can see that it had that threshold as I float my mouse over for the yellow light of 1.2 and the red light of 1.8. So what that means is when the score that this particular roll-up is above 1.2, then it would turn yellow. If it's above 1.8, it would turn red. The score is 0.5, therefore this roll-up is green. Let me show you how that calculation works. So remember, it consists of four different parameter signals: glucose concentration, max lactate concentration, dissolved oxygen, and the glucose concentration here. Sorry, this is the max glucose. This is just the glucose concentration. So each one of these parameter signals has a score. The score is either 0, 1, or 2. It's 0 for a green one, meaning there are no alerts for that particular control chart. If there is an alert, it depends on the rules that are violated. Let's drill into this first one. In this case, we have rules, signal color rules, designed to turn it red. So in this particular case, we violated either Rule 4 and Rule 6 and Rule 2 and 3, or out of Spec 1. In this particular case, we have a red light. So that is going to get a score of 2. So if we go back, you see it's got a 2 because it's red. This has a 0 because it's green. This has a 0 because it's green. And this has a 0 because it's green. Now, to calculate the 0.5, which is the summary of these, what you do is you take that top number, the 2, you multiply it by the weight. So in this case, it's all 1s for the weights. So 2 times 1. Then you add that together for each one of these. So 2 times 1 is 2. 0 times 1 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. So you add those all together. You get 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0, which is 2. And you divide by the total number, which is, in this case, is 4. So 2 divided by 4 gives you the 0.5, or the half. Because that threshold is 1.2 to turn yellow, that score is going to be green. So this then propagates forward with how many roll-ups that you have. So for instance, in this case, we have a score of 0.5 and a score of 0.8. So if I add those together, I get 1.2, and I divide it by 2, and that gives me the 0.65. So 0.58 plus 0.8 gives me 1.3. I divide that by 2, and I get 0.65. So that's the score that you see here. Again, these all have weights of 1. I have not weighted anything in that calculation. So in this case, my 0.65 if I look at the thresholds as I float over this, I see a yellow threshold of 0.2 or above that. I see a red threshold of 0.4. That one we're above as well, and that's why this is red. Again, I'll take this one more time. I'll take 0.65. I'll add 0.4. I get 1.05. I divide that by 2. I get 0.525. Now, this is interesting. Even though you only see 2 decimals, the calculation uses all the decimals. So it's rounded to 0.53 because the actual value is 0.525. Now, if we look at the thresholds, we see that the yellow threshold is 0.1. As I float over, you see that tooltip. And the red is 0.45. Since 0.53 is above that threshold, this is red. So that's how those calculations work. If we maybe go back, let's say go all the way back here and look at one of those parameter signals. So you see this is where those thresholds are defined. These are the parameter signals that are used. This is the weights. So if you have the weighting, then you're going to actually multiply by that weight. An example of that, let me see if I can go into the help. I'll show an example calculation here where that weighting is used. So here's an example where this parameter had no alerts, so its score was 0, but it had a weight of 1. Here's one where the score was 1, it had a weight of 2. So you multiply these two together, so 0 times 1 is 0, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 5 is 10. You add those up, 0 plus 2 plus 10, and you divide by the weight, in this particular case 1, 2, and 5. So then you get a score, a roll-up score of 1.5. Now depending on how that threshold was set, this may be green, this could be yellow, this could be red. It all depends. So that's how these calculations work. The only other thing that you need to realize is you can't have pass-through values. So if I go back to, okay, here is a case where you can have a pass-through value. If you choose a pass-through value, in this case, if this was checked, then any of these that had a alert would pass all the way up through the roll-up to the top. So that's what these pass-through values are used. They don't look at the threshold values. It's anything that is in this, that is red in this or yellow in this, passes all the way up to the top. So it's not used in that calculation. For instance, in the one that we were looking at, if you had a pass-through value for any of these, the red would pass all the way through the top. So in this case, since one of these is red, this would be red, this would be red, and that would be red. If you set the pass-through all the way to pass through to the top. So that's essentially how these calculations are done. At the top, one other piece maybe I'll show you then is in the signal settings, when we look at a particular signal, or sorry, not in the signal settings here, let me look at that. These are where the particular run rules are set up to turn a control chart red or yellow. And of course, they're based off of the risk assessments, which you can have n number of risk assessments. So this is what's controlling the actual control chart for each of the individual colors of the individual control charts. Thanks for watching this video.